That's awesome, brother. I have an interesting thought as well. I don't know if you ever even thought about it this way. You might have, but have you ever thought about if you didn't have this deformity, do you think you would still be a comedian as you are, or do you think your disability kind of helped bring out your sense of humor?
It's it's one of those things. It's it's impossible to say one way or the other. It's
Right.
just because the circumstances are what they are.
Yeah.
But like, I think I don't know if I would do this as a job. It's hard to say, because I think had I not had the disability, I might have been afforded other opportunities, right out of college or whatever, where I, I don't want to say it's easy because like obviously trying to chase a dream in the arts it's madness. It's
Right.
it's a very difficult thing to do for everybody, but it was a lot easier to chase that dream when I felt that my options were that or work at Walmart, that or work at Target. That, those are the kind of jobs I was doing. So it's a lot easier to be like, oh, I'm not going to sit in that. You get a nice, $200,000 a year office job. It's a little, like I know the answer a lot of people want to hear in this is like, no, I would have chased this no matter what. I grew up I didn't have a bed till I was 18 years old and went to college. Like I grew up dirt poor. Had I got an opportunity where, oh, by the way, here's a six-figure job where you're an accountant. I don't know, it's hard to say, because those circumstances matter too.
Yeah.
But uh I mean I do think I still would have been funny though, because my act, I can do an hour and never talk about my disability once and still do well.
Mhm.
But I talk about my disability because it's part of who I am.
Right.
It's not a gimmick. It's not a thing that I made up so that I could be this character. It's literally my life,
Yeah.
and it's hard to separate that. But I do think it definitely helped because humor is a really good self-defense mechanism when
Mhm.
you're growing up and doing that, and it's a good way to deflect. And I'm just, I'm thankful that I'm good enough at it where I've been able to turn it into a career as well.
When you were like, now I want to slowly transition into your career here, is when you were going through all of these hardships and trialing times within your life, right? What, when do you think there was this moment where you actually realized I can actually turn this into a career? Like you said, before AGT, you actually were doing stand-up before.
Right. I honestly, I thought I could turn performing into a career well before I even started. I don't know why. It's a very strange thing for me to explain because generally speaking, in my life, I am not a very confident person. I, part of it was circumstance, but uh, you know, I got my brain to convince myself that I wasn't good enough to get those jobs, or I wasn't good enough to, I was always like, I'll never find anybody, I'll never get a good job, I'll never get all this. Like that's just how my brain was wired. But for some reason with performing, I was like, yeah, I'll be a star one day. Like for I don't know why that kind of clicked in my head that was going to happen. I don't know if it was spite. I don't know if that was how I felt like was my way of being like, well, screw all of you. If you're not
Yeah.
gonna give me a job, I'll do this. Spite's a really powerful motivator if you use it properly.
Right.
Um, but yeah, it's kind of a situation where, you know, I'm 16, 17 years old in high school, and people would gather around me as I was telling stories and stuff like that. Uh, it sort of clicked there. Now, I honestly thought my path was going to be pro wrestler because that was my first performance love. That's where the Cripple threat name came from. That was going to be a wrestling name. It had nothing to
Wow.
do with comedy at that point when I first thought of the name. Uh, yeah, I thought that would be the path, and that was just too hard on my back. I trained for a couple months in my 20s, and just my back couldn't take it. That's a totally different conversation about the merits of pro wrestling as a scripted or real advocation.
Mhm.
But uh, yeah, like I just kind of I've always had that knack. Like I don't know what it was. And again, you never know what the level of success is going to be. You can't predict that you're going to be, Gabriel Iglesias and be selling out Dodger Stadium, or like there's different levels to it. But for how many people try to do this, I'm successful. Now, I'm not the most famous human being on the planet, and that's totally fine. That's not that's not requirement, but I can pay my bills with this. And people, like wonderful people like you pop up and actually want to interview me. I didn't have to beg you for this, and that's like it's a cool thing, you don't
Yeah.
it gives you that little bit of confidence that I often lack in my life. So yeah, I don't know what it was, but even when I started, like I'm not gonna say I always did great every time I went up on stage because that's just impossible. You have to learn the craft.
Yeah.
But my first set I ever did in front of people, I got mostly laughs. Like it went great. There's just like so sometimes that just works, and obviously I had to get better and do a lot of stuff, but had I bombed that first time, I might have went, I don't know, this this isn't for me, but it went well, so like I said, there's, I was convinced at one point, 100% seriously, that I was going to be a huge star and I was also going to die alone. Like those two things were like definitely fighting against each other, but comedy has always kind of been a safe place for my mental health for whatever reason.